Conflict, sometimes violent conflict, has plagued parts of the Mideast for centuries. But there's one town in the south of Israel that's hit by rocket attacks so often it's earned a dubious nickname. We sent Scott Thuman to what's known as the bomb shelter capital of the world.
Sderot, Israel, a small, picturesque town of around 28,000, full of fountains, tree-lined streets, and manicured parks. But it is hardly as peaceful as it appears. The names listed on display in the center of town are of the recently killed, and the hundreds of windowless cement structures adorned with scenic murals, bomb shelters. All 286 of them, on almost every corner, near each bus stop, school, and business. Even the playgrounds here double as a safe space for when the rockets fly, which is why Sderot is known as the bomb shelter capital of the world.
Is this here in Sderot? Yeah.
It seems almost everyone has some sort of video like this on their phones of incoming rockets, accompanied by sirens and a mad dash to get to a shelter immediately. So if the siren went off, if the alarm went off, you just leave everything and run?
Yes. You always have the fear that something is going to explode in your house or something.
How often do you hear the sirens, the warnings?
Many times.
The barrage coming from less than a mile away, the Gaza Strip, a Palestinian territory ruled by the Iranian-supported terror group Hamas, and a launching point for thousands of rockets over the years, targeting nearby Israelis in a decades-long war. You can see just behind me here that boundary line where the fencing is. Gaza on one side, we're about 100 yards on the Israeli side. That proximity is what makes this area a top target for rocket fire from Hamas. During our visit last summer, the town was still mourning from the loss of 5-year-old Ido Avigal after rocket shrapnel penetrated his family's safe room in this apartment building. 20 others were hurt in the attacks that lasted days.
You hear the rockets. It's boom, boom. I see the boy in my eyes, blood. You understand?
Ephraim Rosenfeld tells us life here is measured in seconds.
The siren goes off, and if we're lucky, we have 15 seconds to get to a shelter. And when you drive around with your children in the car, you have to get them out of the seats and find a shelter. So which child do you love more? Or which child do you take out of the car? You have 15 seconds. 15 seconds it's nothing, actually.
You can see reminders of the looming threat really everywhere here in town, but perhaps nowhere more than here. This is just outside the local police station where literally hundreds of used rocket shells sit that have been fired from Gaza into this area. Many of those rockets brought down by the U.S.-backed Iron Dome missile defense system, though that doesn't stop the bloodshed nor retaliation by Israel, often via airstrikes that critics claim is disproportionate. Nearly 6,000 Palestinians have died in conflicts with Israel since 2008, according to the United Nations, in contrast to less than 300 Israeli fatalities. Many of those Palestinian deaths in the West Bank, where I spoke to this young barbershop owner in the capital of Ramallah, sharing his perspective.
I think both sides are wrong, but when you see Israeli on one side kicking people out of their houses, not letting people in their own areas where they live, but that's not a solution. They both have to live in peace.
Until then, there are two options for the residents of Sderot: leave or learn to cope.
I could look back years back. People would be ashamed to come to the resilience center. Today, no one's ashamed.
Ephraim helps run this animal sanctuary designed to provide peace and comfort, offering therapy for a struggling population.
Children who, they go around their house with their parents. They won't
leave their side?
They won't leave their side. They won't go to the second floor.
And when the thousands of safe spaces in town still aren't enough, Ephraim begins his second job, transporting the dead.
This house was hit the last.
It is, he says, just part of life in the bomb shelter capital of the world. For Full Measure, I'm Scott Thuman in Sderot, Israel.